let's look at this question. What amount of money invested today at 3.12% compounded annually will have an accumulated value of $408,000 in 8 years from now? Round all answers to 2 decimal places if necessary. Now, compounded annually tells us that PY will be 1 and CY will also be 1. We'll skip over N for now, and we go to the interest rate, which is 3.12. So we just put that in here, 3.12. And the present value here is this $408,000 up there. So we can put it right in there. The payment is 0 because it's compound interest, and the future value is what we wish to compute. This accumulated value is another term for future value. They're synonymous, meaning they mean the same. So now we can use the calculator. So let us go over here and we go to input CY and CY. We will go second IY. And CY is 1, so we click on 1 and we must click on enter. Now we have PY is equal to 1. Now that value is also being entered or has been entered for CY. So we could either go up or down. Let's go up. CY is right there and it is also 1. Remember I told you we could go down. There is CY and then we go there is CY. Now to get out of here, I will just hit second CPT and that will quit because it activates the command that's just above CPT. So we're out of there. So now we must get to N. Now N is dependent on the number of years. That number of years will be multiplied by this number right here, 8 times 1. So nothing significant, we will still remain 8. So 8 second N, and then multiplied 8 times 1, and then we have to click on N once more to enter the value of 8. Now we will input the IY value or the interest rate, which is 3.12, and there we are. Present value is 408,000, so you'll 408,000, and there we are. That's the present value. Payment is 0, so we go 0 payment, and now we are computing the future values, so we must click on compute CPT right up there, compute, and we click on future value, and that should be the correct answer, 521,679.05. We rounded to 2 decimal places. Now, if you forget to do it, then I think it'll still be marked correct. So let's make our submission now, and we have 2 wrong answers. Okay, so what's happening? So let's go and recall. So we recall present value, 408,000, it looks correct. And we recall the future value, and 521,679.05. So both seem to be correct. So let's go and recall the IY value, 3.12, that also is correct. And let's recall N, and it is 8. So we may have a problem. Now, okay, there is the problem. We want the amount of invested today. So that should be, this should be is what we're computing. Okay, so this entry was incorrect. That entry should be, yes, this number right here. Okay, so we will correct that and we will put it in here. All right, so that is now correct. And now we can go, actually, we don't need to enter numbers. We can recall the present value, the incorrect entry, and we put it into the future value. And now we go and we compute the present value. And now the present value is 319,092.74. and it should be correct now. And there we are. It is correct. So I should have read this better. Invested today would mean that the computation is on the present value, not the future value. All right. So let's go to the next question. Here we have Jeanette initially borrowed $9,000 from the TD Bank. Now we could put that in as our present value, right? So there we are. And it's at 4.15. So 4.15 is the interest rate, and that we could put in. It doesn't matter the order in which we enter them, but we must fill in all but one box, okay, as we will find out very shortly. So this is compounded semi-annually. So therefore, PY will be 2, and so will CY. And we use the calculator to do that. Payment is 0, and in this case, after 4 years now, she makes a repayment, right? So we're going to do for 4 years. Now it will be 4, and we will multiply by 2. The 2 coming from where? Well, the 4 is coming from the 4 years, right? So after 4 years, and the 2 is coming from right here. So 4 times 2. Now we will use the calculator to do that for us. And what we really need to compute is after 4 years, how much is owing. So this here should be the compute, the future value. All right, this time it's correct. I am very sure. Okay, now, so let us go to the calculator. So PY is 2. So we will put 2 in there and enter, correct? Yes. And that will go in also for CY. So we are quite happy with that. We can move on to put in the value for N. Now, N is dependent, so we've moved on after 4 years. So 4 is the number we put in second and N, and that is indeed 8. So now we can delete that part of the entry, and now we've gotten rid of the red lettering. So now the interest rate is 4.15 IY. Okay, present value is 9,000, so 9,000 present value. And 0 now for the payment. And now we compute this future value. All right, compute the future value, and there is the answer. That should be the correct answer. Okay. So let's go here, and we can enter it, 10,607.12. Okay, so you're rounding all answers to decimal places if necessary. So there we are. So that is the future value. Okay, so the amount owed after 4 years is indeed this number right in here. So if we wish, we could do a copy and we could do a paste, so there is no error. Now I will leave it and check at the very end so that I don't use up my 5 tries like you're allowed in your activity when you do the quiz. All right, now, so there's a payment, $3,870. So what I will do is make the future value positive by clicking on this plus minus. And then I can subtract this number here, is 3870, right? So I will subtract, I hit the next minus sign already, or if you want, I can hit it again, and let's see what happens. 3870, and I click equal, and that seems to be a correct answer. So 6,737.12. Okay, so that is the correct answer. That's owing after the first payment. Now, what we need to do is this number will now become what? Yeah, that will become the present value for the next set of calculations. So we can put it in there directly. And we will do as we've been doing. Okay, so we're not told that there is any change. All right. Now we are at 4, then we will go now for after 7 years. So that's the next set of calculations. We've done one set, and that set stops about right here when we computed the future value. Then after that, we compute the payment, or we subtract the payment from this future value here. So this number minus 3,870 gave us this number right here, $6,737.12. And that became the next entry for, sorry, this is in the wrong box. Okay, so let's get it out of here and put it in here. This should be where it should be. Present value. Payment is indeed 0. Okay, now we are correct. And we will compute again the future value. All right, now this number here will be 2. There was no indication of any change, but this number here will change, correct? Now, the first part was for 4 years, remember? So now we are going to 7 years after the $9,000 was initially borrowed. Okay, so this is the $9,000. We're going to 7 years, but 4 years have passed. Okay, so what we should do is go to what? So to get the number of years after the first payment, or the first part of the question, now we're going to the second part for 7 years from the initial. So 4 years have passed, so we should indeed go 7 minus 4. So we will have what? I will have 3 years remaining. So this is the number we use for the number of years for this second part of the calculation. All right, so let me take out the 7 minus 4. You just have to remember to do that. And then we multiply by the value for PY, which is 2. I'm indicating it as PY because of the calculator. It multiplies by PY. And later on, you'll see why it is PY and not CY. Those two numbers can be different when we get to annuities, probably chapter 4, chapter 5, or unit 4, unit 5, quiz 4, quiz 5, right about there. All right, now, so we do have this number here on the calculator, which is this number here. Now, don't be too worried about the rounding. We can actually take that number and insert it in for the present value for the next set of calculations. All right, so PY and CY, they're 2, and IY retains its value of 4.15. So we could indeed copy and paste if we wish. So there is no error of transmission. So now let's go back. So second IY, and it is still 2, so we need to do no change. Now we get out of there and we go to N. So we must use the 3 years. Remember, 7 minus 4, as you can see up here. The first part was 4 years. Now it's here up to 7 years. So 7 minus 4 gave us this number right here, this 3. So now we go 3, second, N, and the number is indeed 6, which is what we have right here. So that having been done, we can now move on. We did get our 6. So there we are, got rid of the red lettering. IY is 4.15. We can go and insert it, or we could go use the recall. You should know about how best to use a calculator or what these buttons are about. So RCL is for recall. I can recall IY, and I see the number is indeed 4.15, so I'm very happy about that. Now, I inserted this value there that was owing after the payment into the present value. So if I recall the present value, that number should be there. And I didn't worry about rounding, so I just leave it like that. Okay, 0 for the payment. That is another recall. There was no change there. So it's a recall, and payment should be 0. And we compute the future value, and that turns out to be this number here, 7620.29. Right? So that should be correct. So the amount owing after 7 years, this is just to make sure that you know that that is the number that goes in there. So we copy and paste, and there we are. Okay. Now there's a second payment. payment of 3,060. So what we need to do is to take this number and subtract 3,060. So there we are. We have the future value. I click on plus minus right here to make it positive. I then subtract 3060. Remember, that is this number right over here. So then I click on equal and I have the number that's owing after that payment, which is $4,560 and 63 cents. All right, I did round. You could put 629. It doesn't matter. You could put all these decimals. That is quite all right. So maybe you want a demonstration is to to see them all, but as you see, we ran out of a bit of room there. So we could actually stop after the 7 if you wish. If you like to see everything displayed, then we can do that. Okay, now this number right here will become what? That will become the present value. Yes, no error this time. I will insert it for the present value, so I can just go and click on present value. All right, and there we are. We're getting ready for the next set of calculations. Now these are remaining the same. Py will remain as 2 and cy is 2. I think my last check, that is what it was, and that is what it will continue to be. So there we are. Those two numbers are right in there. And we use the calculator to do the calculation. IY is 4.15. As you can see, that is indeed the value for IY. So I will insert that value right there. There we are. I have the present value. Payment will also continue to be 0. Why? Because we're still in compound interest. That is the reason for that. And the computation here will be for the future value. All right. So we have all that we need. We have the boxes filled in, and we will use to calculate, and then we can compute the final value for the future value. Okay, so let us go. We can go back in here and just to be sure that py is 2 and cy is 2. I went up this time, and I will clear it this way. I will go down to this bottom left corner, hit on clear, and there we're out of that menu, and I clicked on clear again just to delete the numerical value of 2. Now, the value for n, we must do a computation. Now, we are looking for where? So we progressed. Well, we went further along after the initial start, 4 years, 7 years, and now we are, yes, if she pays off the debt after 10 years. So 7 years have passed. Now we're into year number 10. So, or we are projecting, we're going to get to year number 10. So we should go 10 minus 7 now, and that is equal to 3. All right, so we're back to the 3. And if I delete the 10 minus 7, because that might cause some confusion, I go multiplied by 2, the 2 being here, this cy value, and that should be equal to 6. But that will be done by the calculator. So we have already checked that py is 2, because we went in there and we checked it and we got out of there. So now we need to use this 3. Now, of course, if you recall n, you'll see it was 6 because 6 was the original number. But to do it properly, we put in 3 and we go second and n, and it turns out to be 6. In this case, those two happen to be the same number of years, so resulting in 6, 3 times 2, giving us the 6. The IY value is 4.15. We can check that, recall IY, and there's the 4.15. And now we should check for this present value. So we go recall present value, and we do have it in there. Now, you could always change this and round it if you wish. It wouldn't matter. If you did round, maybe you might be somebody who likes to round it or likes to be consistent in terms of the monetary value. So 4560.63. And there we are. That goes in for the present value. Okay, we recall the payment. It is 0, and then we compute the future value, and that turns out to be 5,158.71. Okay, that is the future value. So now the final payment needs to be made would indeed be this number right here. So we can copy and we can paste it in there. And hopefully all my calculations are correct. So let's submit the question. And so far, first part is correct, second part is wrong. So there's a problem in here. Why would this be wrong? Well, we can go back now. We have to do a bit of checking now. Okay, so why it's wrong? Who knows? We'll find out though. Okay, so what you do, you must always go back and check these numbers, right? So we will do that, and we find out that 2 and 2. So that is quite clear. N is 6. Looks like everything is correct. And we'll check for this value here, which is what? We recall the IY, 4.15. The present value is 6, 7. So let's insert that. Why? Because that will no longer be the present value. So let's go 6, 7, 3, 7, decimal 12 or 0.12, and that is the present value, right? Now we just make sure that CV is 0, and if we compute and we see, so 7620, so that was a mistake. This should be 62, correct? Yes, 62 or 63. Now you could put 625 if you're worried about the rounding, but 623 is indeed the correct answer. So let's do that. All right, so this number here, all right, will indeed be this number right here. Okay, so no check marks anymore. Now, for some reason, I was clever enough to buy because I used the calculator, so there was no typographical error, meaning I couldn't enter it wrong. So that is why these numbers here are correct. Okay, so the best way to do things is always to check, and I should be more careful when I'm entering my numbers. Yes, of course, and so should you when you're doing, especially your test. The quiz, you do have five attempts to get it correct. So now it should be correct. So let me go and submit. And it was the second part that was wrong. These were the incorrect answers right here. Okay, so if this is incorrect, this would be incorrect. And that is very good. So I will conclude here. And the next time we meet, we will continue with the rest of quiz number